Going further, you told the Awful Announcing podcast, and this is a quote, "We knew when Norby, as in Williamson, the former executive editor and head of event and studio production, took over our show, he didn't really want us to be the anchors. He never would have chosen us to host the 6 o'clock show. But I do think us not being his first choice, or not being a choice, I should say, I think that hurt. And I don't think, while there was certainly a level of professional respect, the narratives around our show, he didn't help to kill those. And I don't know how much he had to do with creating them, but I could say I certainly had my suspicions, especially when it came to certain narratives, that our show was too political," which is very interesting, by the way, to look back on as we're watching ESPN and some of the main people there now. However, he never would have chosen us to host the 6 o'clock show, but I do think us not being his first choice or not being a choice, I think that hurt. Why?
It hurt because the best example I can compare it to, it's like if you are a starting quarterback and the coach that brought you in gets fired and they bring in a new coach who has a completely different offense that really doesn't play to your skill set.
You're talking about the
Or
Bears, by the way. Just saying.
or frankly, because they didn't draft you,
Right.
they have no allegiance to you whatsoever and don't really care about developing you because you're not their pick. You're not their guy. So when there was a change in leadership and the person that brought us in was no longer in charge of our show, and especially understanding that it seemed to be Norby's general television philosophy was a little more conservative than ours. And I knew from the beginning we were going to have a problem. And as much as we had many closed door meetings with Norby, and really, he tried to reassure us that that wasn't the case and that he thought we were both very talented. And I don't deny that on some level, yes, I'm sure he did think that we were talented, but he didn't think we were a fit for SportsCenter. And I think that was pretty clear. Uh, and he had a different vision for what he wants SportsCenter to be that did not match ours. And so we're already on a different page creatively and what we think the show should be and how it should be presented. And it seemed like because of the poor narratives that surrounded our show, the too political, the too black, and those are really linked together because what was political about us? I mean, there was nothing. Like
Mhm.
it wasn't like you turned into the 6 o'clock Sports Center and we were discussing immigration reform. Like that,
Right.
that didn't happen. Like we weren't discussing healthcare. We weren't like Obamacare or not. Like that was never, that was never anything that we presented. Now, if there was some political or social issue, it was definitely tied to sports and it was definitely in the news. So it wasn't like we were bringing these topics out of left field. But when you go back and look at some of the things that were said about our show and written about our show, that politics stuff came up and it was just kind of ridiculous. And this is something that I think a lot of Black people know is that your presence is just political, whether you want it to be or not. So really what they were trying to say is where they get these two Black people from and why are they on my 6 o'clock Sports Center? That
Mm.
was that was the tone of it. And Norby, I think he was aware of how the show was perceived, wrongly perceived, I might add. And sooner, uh, not too long into his time there, he he did a lot to de-blackify the show. Okay. And that even included the fact that like when we used to open the show, it would be Mike and I welcoming people into the 6 o'clock Sports Center. We're both on camera together. This is how we always did things because we wanted people to know, hey, we're welcoming you in. You're coming to visit our house. Come grab a plate, be merry. This is our house. And Norby got in there and he changed it. He changed the total opening completely to where not only did he get rid of our music, which was done by DJ Jazzy Jeff,
Oh, man.
he also, right, which ain't easy to get Jazzy Jeff to do
Legend.
anything
Legend.
for you.
I
Legend
interviewed him.
in
He's
hip hop.
amazing.
He's incredible, right?
Yes.
Not easy to get him to do things for you. And he did it for us because he rocked with us. So got rid of that. And then they use what we call a voice from God to do the intro to Sports Center. And he may not have meant it this way. I can't speak to what his intentions were, but let me tell you how it came off. It came off as especially let me put this in further context, especially after there was a ratings meeting in which we were told that the number of white viewers were lowering for our show. And even though we maintained a very strong black viewership, they noticed that not as many white people were watching. And then suddenly all these changes come. And so I mean, two plus two equals four in my mind. It's like one, I don't know what y'all trying to do. Is like you change the intro. You change the fact that Mike and I are on camera to welcome the show. Instead, you have a voice of God going over what people can expect from the 6 o'clock Sports Center. It's like almost like you wanted us to surprise the white people at 6:05 when they finally put the camera on us to be like, oh my God, you're telling me two black people hosted this show? Well, I don't know about this. It's like, what? So suddenly our personality wall that had Biggie on it, Obama, John Carlos, and Tommy Smith, all that had to come down. So all the things that signal to people that these are two black people who have SportsCenter gone. And so it just seemed very intentional and
Mhm.
very purposeful that he wanted our SportsCenter, he wanted to make SportsCenter great again.
Was oh wow. Was he well put? Was he solely responsible for pulling down the images of Tommy Smith and John Carlos?
Yes, it was his call. And I think a lot of it, frankly, I think the reason why the personality came out was because of one person, and that was Barack Obama. That was why. Because Mike and I had both been invited to the White House, and we had our pictures with Michelle and Barack Obama because we were very proud of them because we couldn't believe the president and the first lady were fans of ours. Like, who gets to say that? You
Hmm.
know, we were proud of those. And I think they probably, because they couldn't single out and just remove his photo, they made us remove everything. So then it seems like it's just a unilateral, just remove all the personality wall and make it plain. But it was really about the Obama photo. I mean, because we're talking about at this point, this is 2017. We know who's president. ESPN is being excoriated for being too liberal, too woke. In fact, they used to call our sports center woke center.
Mm.
Again, why?
Hmm.
Right? What makes it woke? What does that mean? Right? And so because of that, I think they felt like they needed to make it as vanilla as possible. Suddenly they wanted us to add more voices to the show. And, one of the ways I knew that, I mean, again, you could see we could read all the tea leaves. Like the tea leaves are tea leaving. And, it was suggested to us that we should have somebody like Will Kane on the show. Why? Why would you suggest that we have Will Kane on the show? For what? And that's no disrespect to Will Kane but it's like, is he an expert at something that we are not? Because like technically we are all the same thing. It's like, and in fact, we have more expertise than Will Kane because we actually covered sports.
Totally.
Will did not. So we are actually sports journalists. We've actually done this. So why do you want Will Kane to be on the show? I know why you want Will Kane to be on the show because you want to send a bad signal to conservative white people that they're welcome to. So
Hmm.
just say that, right?
Yes, absolutely. So you were not a fan of the model of let's put Will Kane on first take to talk about why the conservative flag is fine. And currently on Abby Phillips' show, that Scott Jennings has a seat because we need political neutrality. Like, what even is this political neutrality in 2025?
Well, I think, and those shows, when you're talking about opinion shows, I guess it's a little bit different because you are trying to have a wide range of opinions. Like that's generally the purpose of them. So
Fair.
I get that. But what I would say is that this is kind of overall blanket in our profession is that we are we have become intoxicated with neutrality rather than truth because we're trying to both sides everything and everything doesn't need to be both sides. Like we want to die on the sword of neutrality when we should be trying to die on the sword of truth. The truth is there's not two sides to racism. You can't both sides it, right? You can't both sides bigotry, you can't both sides ignoring the Constitution, you can't both sides sending somebody to a El Salvadorian prison. You cannot both sides any of these things, right? Because right is right, wrong is wrong. We know what that means. These are not necessarily issues of politics. This is just issues of like humanity for crying out loud. And because journalists have, there's a difference between being neutral and being fair. And a lot of us got those definitions misconstrued.
Hmm.
You can be fair, you don't have to be neutral.
Right.
Because there's some things, frankly, we should not be neutral about, in this moment, especially since the only way that a free press can thrive is through, or the only way a democracy can thrive is through a free press.